My name is Mary Amesbury, and I love Jesus with an ADHD brain. ADHD is a brain difference that goes way beyond a hyperactive kid who can't pay attention in class. My ADHD made doing most things just really difficult. But it also makes me funny and creative. And so there are some good things about having ADHD. I did most of my adult life not understanding why my brain let me down. I called it glitching. And I told myself that my glitches weren't that bad or weren't that frequent. And part of the way that my brain works is that it forgets the struggles pretty quickly after they're over. And I guess that's a good thing, except for it masks what's really going on. Then last April, I had a significant brain meltdown. I was doing a major event with Campus Bible Fellowship. It was an outdoor concert, and I had been praying for weeks that the weather would be warm and dry so that there would be lots of students out on the plaza. But the day of the event, the weather wasn't very good. And on the way down to campus, I had people in my car, and their conversation began to overwhelm my brain. And then we got down to campus, and everybody's asking, how can I help? And my brain began to deteriorate further. And then the rain started, and the wind started, and the canopy began to bend, and I went into full brain stall. It's the most helpless and terrifying feeling when my brain won't function. I can look absolutely fine on the outside, but inside, my brain is just shutting down. After the event, I was sad and angry and confused and utterly depleted. But even in my mental collapse, I stayed convinced that God knows every part of me, and that if I needed to know how I was built, it was only my Creator who was going to be able to give me the right answer. The next day I Googled, why does my brain turn to mush with too much sensory input? And immediately sensory overload popped up on the screen. And sensory overload is a symptom of either autism or ADHD. Autism didn't seem to fit, but when I began to gather information about how ADHD presents itself in adult women, it was like looking at myself in a mirror. So I began to write down a list of all the ways that my brain fails me. And as I put that list together, I became convinced that I had struggled with undiagnosed ADHD since childhood. I'd been using adaptive strategies for years to try to hide my brain fails. But the time had come to get an accurate diagnosis of what was going on with my brain. My first visit to the therapist consisted of a series of questions. I think I answered yes to all of them. My therapist told me that it's a challenge to get the right ADHD med at the right dose on the first try. And she said that it probably would take quite a bit of trial and error. So again, I went to my Creator and asked Him to so work in my therapist that she would prescribe the right med at the right dose on the first try. And that's exactly how the Lord worked. My therapist had decided to give me a particular med, but then she asked me one more question, and she said, you know what, I'm going to change my mind. And she prescribed to me atomoxetine, a non-stimulant ADHD med. And from the very first day that I took that med, life was different. Things that were difficult I could now do. Things that had been frustrating were now not frustrating. And it has been wonderful to just feel and experience what good feels like. In the next video, I'll talk about how the way that our ADHD brains work and how they fail is not moral failure, and that we need to break the cycle of heaping shame on ourselves. See you then.